So on that list of generals that you just saw in the previous video, you may have noticed I had a red star next to Alcibiades' name. Here's why. In the summer of 415 BC, when the ships were all being equipped and made ready to get the launch together, apparently some type of movement was brewing up against Alcibiades as a way of getting at him by effectively trying to scuttle the campaign. So one of the ways to do this was to basically cause another terror incident. This is the second incidence of terror that I was mentioning in a previous video when we talked about Milos. Here now it appears again. On the morning when the expedition was going to happen, the Athenians woke up and went out of their houses. Many Athenian houses had this square or rectangular pillar in front of the house that represented symbolically a statue of Hermes. The Hermes statue had a face, and then it had a phallus. It's referred to as an ithyphallic Hermes. According to the historian Thucydides, when the Athenians woke up that morning, they discovered that all of the statues of Hermes had been desecrated. He refers to it as the faces, but we suspect that what might have been really going on was mistreatment of the phallus, of the variety whack, 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 whack. Unfortunately, this was a terrible omen for the Athenians. This was a religious crime, and one immediate thought was that it might be an effort to take over the city. A political coup might have been underway. Now, we don't know exactly who organized this, but the one who was immediately fingered, of course, was Alcibiades. His enemies arranged that Alcibiades, instead of standing trial for the accusation right then, should go off on the expedition, as he was in fact instructed to do, and to wait until his return from the expedition, whereupon he could then clear up the matter of the Hermocopid affair. This was actually a ruse. The point was to get Alcibiades out of the city so that then a charge could be unconstitutionally brought against him to the Athenian law court. His enemies would then be able to bring the case without a proper defense being mounted on his behalf, and Alcibiades could then be convicted to death. At that point, the state tribune would have to go and recall him from the campaign and bring him home, whereupon he would face his capital punishment if in fact he was convicted. So this was all trickery. Of course, this act of trickery would have deadly effects on the campaign itself, and it's unfortunate that the people who carried this out were very short-sighted about how devastating a blow this would be for the city eventually. In any event, Alcibiades did actually deny the charges, and I think it is very likely that the charges were actually trumped up against him. But he agreed still to go on the expedition without trying to face trial right then, in order not to delay the start of the expedition, especially since it was indeed about to get underway. So what happened, in fact, was that Alcibiades went out on the expedition, and he ended up being convicted in absentia to the death penalty for the charge of what's called in Greek asabeia, which is essentially sacrilege, a religious crime that did indeed carry a capital charge, and he was convicted to death. Obviously, he didn't have any defense. He was unaware that a trial would even be convened without his permission or knowledge in this way. And so the state tribune did indeed have to go and recall Alcibiades. When it arrived, it told an excuse story saying Alcibiades had some technicality that he needed to deal with, come back home, we'll take care of it. So Alcibiades got on his trireme and accompanied the Paralus back. But when he went on shore at Rhegium, somebody got word to him that in fact he had been convicted to death and that he was about to be executed. And so when he sailed back out on the open water with Paralus, he raced off. He went off to the Spartan side and informed the Spartans of what was going on in Sicily. The Spartans did not heard enough about it to realize how large an expedition it was, and it was now Alcibiades' information that got the Spartans into the Sicilian expedition, again with very unfortunate effects for the Athenians there and the Athenians at home. So Alcibiades turns out to be a liability for Athenian politics in this respect, and this is not the last time that he will play a role in Athenian politics that probably turned Athens in a direction that it really didn't want to go. All right, well, we now have the expedition underway under a really terrible omen, a really, really black cloud, and we'll now turn to the actual mechanics of the expedition itself in our next video.